What's going on, gamers? I am Merkaba18, and today we are talking about a brand new season of Marvel Snap. So, the Fantastic Four first steps are all out as of this week, and next week we are starting a brand new season in which Galactus is getting a new variation for first steps, and Silver Surfer is getting a new version with first steps. I'm going to go ahead and read you the text on these, and then we're going to talk about the deck that I'm going to be using where I can kind of see these fitting in within the season, and where I think this deck has some strengths and weaknesses, what you could use as alternatives to the deck that I am presenting here if you don't have some of the cards. So Galactus First Step is a 6 energy, 12 power card. So base energy, base power is very, very good on its own. It's decent. It's not the highest 6 cost energy, power transfer or anything like that. But where it really starts to shine a little bit is if you are able to play it a little bit earlier for less energy, or if you're able to add some power to it. So that is where the text comes in. If you see My Herald is the next character I see you play. We're not really clear yet what that means exactly. Hopefully we'll get some clarity on that. But what the Herald of Galactus in the comics and in the Marvel Universe is Silver Surfer. So we're going to talk about Silver Surfer first steps here in just a second. But at the end of each turn, if you are winning the Herald's location, Silver Surfer's location, this card will get 2 extra power if it's in your hand or if it's in play. So that means that if you're winning a lane where Silver Surfer is, he gains 2 power. So obviously making it gain power and being able to play it earlier is where this card kind of shines. And it fits well within that end of turn style of play that we have seen up to this point be built out over the last couple of weeks. The new sort of archetype is that power surge. We'll talk about more of that in just a second. Now, Silver Surfer is also getting a new card for first steps here. She is a 3 energy, 4 power card. If you're winning this location with an on reveal card, copy that card's text, which is very, very good. Obviously, that's sort of a different version of it's almost the best way to think of it is like a different version of potentially Absorbing Man to a degree or to a lesser degree. Maybe like a Mystique for ongoing cards, but in this case, it's a on reveal card. So the strength of this one isn't in its energy or power; it's in its ability to copy very strong on reveal effects. So let's talk about which cards we're going to be using with this one. In this particular case, we are going to be going with the Power Surge sort of Herald deck that I have set up here. Sunspot, because this is a card that's going to take a lot of setup and there's going to be a lot of wasted energy. So you want to get Sunspot down. Zabu, because there are a bunch of 4 cost cards in this deck, 3 to 4 of them specifically. So the faster that you can play those, the better. Mr. Fantastic and Surge First Steps Edition are some of the best cards in the entire game. Maybe some of the best cards ever added to Marvel Snap. I would anticipate that these are probably targets for nerfing at some point, so be mindful of that. These are going to reduce your costs and increase your power, which fits well within the Galactus setup here and well within the Silver Surfer First Steps edition. So those are, I mean, these 2 cards honestly can slide into just about any deck at the moment. You can put them into any deck and they basically make it better. If you don't have one, make sure you use the other. If you don't have either of them, we'll talk about some alternatives here in a second. Human Torch is going to obviously give you a very strong power churn as you fill up a lane. There are going to be a lot of lanes that end up pretty full here. So eventually this card could be worth, as much as easily within the 10 to 12 range without much effort. So a lot of times you can make it worth more than that, depending on how you're able to get it down and how fast you're able to get it down. Or how many times it gets hit with either of these cards. Jubilee, Doom, and Fantasticar. Jubilee is going to be able to pull, hopefully, Galactus down or Silver Surfer down in a much faster way. So if you don't have those cards in your hand, that's a way of pulling those cards or basically any of the other cards in this deck for free while also sort of filling a lane. You want to be a little bit careful not to plug your lanes too early. We'll talk about that more in a second. Mr. Doom here, because this is a very expensive deck. Doom 2099 is going to allow you to take advantage of. You're not going to get a ton of like plays here. Most of the time, you're going to be playing one card per hand, and that's a way of like adding power to the cards that are already there. Particularly with Mr. Dr. Doom down here, same thing. Fantastic card. It's also noteworthy that this is an end of turn card. It's a very underrated end of turn card, one that people are not using as much within these decks, and I think that that is because it got nerfed a couple of months ago. I think it's going to be brought back up a little bit this season with this particular power dynamic. Fantastic card is going to hit all of your end of turn cards with a bunch of extra power. We've got like 3 or 4 of them in this deck. It's a good power play for a 4 or 3 cost card anyway, and it can get hit with a couple of these, and then it's worth it even more. This is sort of like a better version in some ways than Silver Surfer these days, except that it only hits end of turn cards. Power Marvel, or Blue Marvel, is there for the extra power. Plain and simple. No other really way to explain that one. Dr. Doom is a way of filling a bunch of lanes for a relatively high cost. You get 15 power essentially across 3 lanes. Very good way to fill up some lanes quickly. And then obviously the 2 cards that are not out yet are that Galactus card we just talked about, and then Silver Surfer First Steps. Both of these are First Steps additions. By the end of this, you should have most of your lanes pretty full. Now, the strengths and weaknesses of this deck, as you might imagine, is that you have to kind of pull cards in the right order and try to get the sequence going. It takes a little bit of time to get to learn what that looks like. We're not entirely fully clear yet what that means, like that you have to have the Herald as the next card I see you play. I don't know whether that means you have to draw Galactus and then play Silver Surfer. I think that's kind of what it means, but it's a little bit unclear. So there's a little bit of a like churn to this and a little bit of a setup. It also is a very expensive deck overall with not a ton of like base power set into it. So it can easily lose to decks that are set up around like big power on a couple of lanes. This is going to be able to spread its power out quite a bit more, and it's going to win into the like 20s and 30s rather than having 1 or 2 lanes that are worth like 40 or 45. So there's some weaknesses for this one. Obviously, Mr. Fantastic is often a target, and Surge is often a target. All of these cards can become a target to some degree or another from Red Guardian because they start with a little bit of low power. So you want to kind of protect them with some other lower cost cards that you don't want to, that you're not as concerned about getting hit with that. Eventually, this could become a problem with like a Shang-Chi, as is always the case, like having this card worth 10 and then it gets hit with Shang-Chi. It is a little bit vulnerable to Cosmo because you are copying on reveal texts from Silver Surfer. So if you like put Dr. Doom down at 5 and then Silver Surfer down at 6, you maybe want to be careful not to accidentally get Cosmoed on one particular lane. Some of the strengths of this one is that it is a little bit it sneaks up on you a little bit. People are probably going to underestimate how much power you can generate across all 3 lanes. And so they are going to probably struggle, maybe snap a little bit too early, not realizing what you're doing exactly. And then you hit them at 6 with, a 12, 14 power Galactus that costs 3 or 4 because it's been hit with Surge a couple times or Mr. Fantastic a couple times. You can end up with a 30 power Galactus, honestly, in some theoretical cases here. It's a very strong deck in that regard. You can slam that last final lane with a bunch of power and they're not going to know it's there. Some alternatives that I could see using, obviously Sunspot's a really important one. Zabu is really important. You could really make a case for Miss Invisible, Invisible Woman here, because it'll allow some of those end of turn double takes to go twice. You could make a case for the Thing, although I think the Thing is the weakest of the First Steps additions. And I would say things like Agony would be a good way to build some power into Mr. Human Torch or into Doom. You could make a case for Captain Carter, the 3 power, 3 energy card that takes on and boost power to the rest of the decks behind her, or the cards behind her in a lane. You can make a case, really strong case for if you don't have Silver Surfer for Steps Edition, you can make a case potentially for just putting in a Odin and having those on reveal effects happen twice. While also Galactus being 6 energy, 12 power is a good enough case in a lot of ways to make a lane yours anyway. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of this deck, and I will see you again next week for a brand new Series 5 card that's going to be a lot of fun to build around. Make sure to hit the sub button on the way out. Thank you for watching.